All right, so we are recording now. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. My name is Antoinette Laiolo, and I'm the coordinator of psychology and counseling for Torrance Unified School District and a member of our TUPE team, or Tobacco Use Prevention Education Program. And with me is Monica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Pavlovich. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and I'm also the TUPE case manager.
And Jen is also with us, Jen Harris.
Good morning, everyone. Jen Harris with Behavioral Health Services. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm sorry, I gotta let somebody else in really quickly. I apologize. Oh, I think everybody's in now. Okay. So thank you for joining us. One thing we like to talk about, we're going to get started with Monica's going to get us started. So let me go forward with the slide. Hold on real quick. There we go.
Hello, everyone. We're here today to talk to you about our TUPE grant that was awarded to Torrance Unified School District. It's a 3-year grant in consortium with LACO and other local school districts. The intention of the grant is to provide tobacco use prevention education to our middle schools and to our high schools. The purpose of the grant is to reduce the use of tobacco by our youth by empowering students grades 6 to 12 to make healthier decisions through tobacco prevention, instruction, intervention, cessation programs, and to reinforce activities emphasizing youth development. The program focuses primarily on tobacco prevention, which include e-cigarettes and vape pens. However, TUSD has adopted a more comprehensive vision that includes a focus on alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs as well. The TUPE grant elements are as follows: prevention, parent engagement, intervention and cessation, youth development, and the California Healthy Kids Survey, in which Nettie will go and describe a little more in detail.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I had to admit somebody. Okay. So the big part of the prevention element is the prevention curriculum, which is the Stanford Tobacco Prevention Toolkit. It's a theory-based and evidence-informed learning tool in conjunction with scientists, educators, parents, and students to share information about the harmful effects of tobacco products, of tobacco and tobacco products. The goals of the toolkit are to learn facts about the harmful effects of tobacco consumption, learn about the marketing strategies used by manufacturers to increase tobacco use in adolescents. Again, when we say tobacco, it also includes vaping as well. Learn skills to refuse experimentation and easy ways to say no thanks. And for school teachers and administrators to be able to develop and implement new school policies. So what it's going to look like in terms of the rollout for our schools is in the middle schools, we are doing 8 sessions in grades 7 and 8 of the Stanford Tobacco Toolkit, and high schools are doing 5 sessions in grade 9. Each site has been able to pick which class they're rolling out in, and most sites are doing it in PE, but I believe there's a couple also doing it in science. So there's also a wonderful parent engagement piece, like today is an example of our parent engagement piece. So it includes virtual presentations and opportunities for parents to listen to guest speakers that address the topic of prevention and awareness of tobacco use. We're really excited. We have a few more speakers lined up for you. So please stay tuned for the flyers. We actually have someone, Dr. Victor DeNoble, who will be speaking about, and I'm sorry, he used to work for the tobacco industry. So he has a very interesting perspective, and he now does a lot of presentations for parents. So that's going to be coming up in May. So also, that's our parent engagement piece. Then we have our intervention and cessation piece, which we're also very excited about. And that's being led by Monica, as she is, so sorry, I got to admit somebody else real quick. And so we're so excited. So our case manager, which is Monica, provides individual or small group sessions to help students make healthier decisions and provide linkage to community partners if additional support is needed. You know, we're taking the, we're looking at through tobacco use and vaping use through the lens of a symptom or a sign of other stuff possibly going on with a student. And which is why we brought in a case manager who's an actual licensed therapist, which is so wonderful to have Monica with us on our team, so that when she's able to do brief intervention to identify if students have other needs or need additional counselings and support that we can link them to. Youth development is also a wonderful piece of the grant. Schools participate in site-determined educational and fun challenges that promote a tobacco substance-free environment with guidance from the school site TUPE coordinator. So each school site has a TUPE coordinator. And for all the schools, it's one of the assistant principals, except for Sharon Drevno, where it's the counselor. With guidance from school site TUPE coordinator, students interested in being leaders in the anti-tobacco substance use movement for their school will be given tools and activities to engage their fellow classmates in school-wide challenges. This experience of becoming a peer advocate in the anti-tobacco vaping movement will allow students to share ideas and develop connections, receive letters of recommendation, accrue community service hours, add involvement to college applications, and support an important cause and potentially help save a life. Just so you know, each school site is coming up with their own youth development activities based on their student interests. Another big piece is the California Healthy Kids Survey. It's a component of the grant. If you have the grant, you have to give the California Healthy Kids Survey. And the California Healthy Kids Survey is being given to our students in grades 6, 7, 9, and 11. So the core module of the California Healthy Kids Survey is aligned with the local control and accountability plan to assess school climate and safety, pupil engagement, student supports, bullying, and substance use. And there's also demographic questions that help identify the needs of key subgroups, including racial and ethnic groups, foster youth, economically disadvantaged, and English language learners. You may have already received information from your schools about the California Healthy Kids Survey. Each site will be giving it at different times, but of course it will be done by June. And just so you know, for 6th grade, in order to participate in the California Healthy Kids Survey, it's considered active consent, which means you have to sign giving your permission for your 6th grader to participate in the California Healthy Kids Survey. And for grade 7, 9, and 11, it is considered passive consent, which means it's given unless you let the school site know you do not want your child to participate. But that information is being sent out directly from the school sites in terms of how to provide the active consent for 6th graders and how to deny your permission for your 7, 9, and 11 if you do not want them to participate. Also included that will be a link to the actual questions if you'd like to look at what the questions are. So in conclusion, the goal for TUSD through this wonderful grant opportunity is to help our student body build a variety of important relevant skills related to their health and wellness and expose our students to opportunities for communication, planning, and positive decision-making, especially around this dangerous topic. And so now we're going to turn it over to Jennifer Harris from Behavioral Health Services, who will be giving us a lot more information about substance use in general. And then let me stop share so you can share now. There we go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So thank you all again for being here. We appreciate you for participating in today. We're hoping that you have the ability to get a lot of information regarding the TUPE program, even how you all can become involved as parents, which is extremely important because some of the research and data that's been out there has talked about parents' involvement in their children's lives over time, and how usually parents are very involved in elementary school, and as their child gets older, they start to pull back, and they're still somewhat involved in middle school, and then in high school, it's kind of like, okay, you do your thing, and parents kind of step away. And of course, this isn't true for all parents, and we want to make sure that with our young people in Torrance Unified, that the parents are involved because life is happening, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's important that as individuals, but also as family units, we are coming together to support one another. And so we're going to talk about youth, substance abuse, and COVID-19. And as mentioned, my name is Jen Harris. I am with Behavioral Health Services. I'm a prevention coordinator for South Bay. And within our organization, we provide a lot of different services, but primarily substance abuse prevention and treatment. We also do work around HIV and AIDS, homelessness, family preservation. We have a mental health component as well, where we provide counseling through mental health services. We also have several health centers where we provide primary care, prenatal care, and so forth. And we are also administering the COVID vaccine. We also do COVID testing and so many other wonderful things. In regards to my program, South Bay Prevention. So our focus is really around the education aspect with youth and community members. We put a big emphasis, especially on youth and parents, and really focusing on substances or different types of drugs. Also making sure we can reduce youth access. So it's extremely important that young folks don't have access to drugs because it provides an opportunity for them to have access to other things, right? And encourage their connections and use of other things instead of drugs. Also, working on the advocacy of policies related to youth drug consumption, and then protecting our youth and community when it comes to substance abuse. We also have our South Bay outpatient, and they focus on the treatment aspect of things. So we do have youth treatment at this particular location in Gardena. We also have youth treatment at our Torrance office, which is off of Post near the Bank of America. So let's talk about the state of youth substance abuse, because I think this is extremely important in really wrapping our heads around, like, where is substance abuse right now? And honestly, you know, I was having this conversation and even talking about this in January, and things are still the same. So nationally, there has been an increase with the following drugs regarding middle school and high school students. So middle school and high school students nationally are reporting an increase in alcohol use, cigarette use amongst 12th graders, vaping nicotine, vaping marijuana, even using over-the-counter medicines and cough syrup. And this is really focused on the misuse aspect of it, or abusing it. Even inhalants, when it comes to middle school through 10th grade youth, reporting that they're using inhalants. So if you don't know what an inhalant is, that's really focused on types of things that you can use to get high, like Sharpie markers, or glue, sniffing glue, or an aerosol spray can of some sort, paint, spray paint, those types of things. Also hallucinogens and LSD. What youth in middle school and high school have reported a decrease in are heroin, using Juul, so the Juul vaping products, and also a slight decrease in their other types of marijuana use. When it comes to Juul, one thing I will mention is that there were a lot of regulations and things that came down on Juul. So this is one of the things that we believe is happening because of the limits with Juul, and also coming down on them for shipping, or letting minors purchase Juul products without truly checking how old they are. When it comes to the South Bay, we have started looking at more and more drug trends in the area and really figuring out what's happening with our young folks. And so alcohol is still pretty high. Also vaping, whether it's vaping nicotine or tobacco or marijuana. Also marijuana use, like the leaf or plant version of marijuana, or even consuming edibles, is still happening. And an edible would be some sort of food or beverage product that is infused with marijuana. And then additionally, prescription drugs and opioids, we are still seeing trends with this as well. And I'm also going to talk about why we're seeing some of these things, and it really goes into COVID-19. So I do want to say, though, that in the South Bay, we were already having challenges with these drugs and young people. There had been a slight decline in more youth saying, and even nationally, they had been seeing it, more youth saying, well, no, I don't do it, or I stopped doing it, and either seeking help, quitting cold turkey, or just never picking it up. However, because of COVID-19, there has been an increase in substance use and abuse. And this is happening with both youth and adults. When it comes to COVID-19, it's been extremely challenging for folks who are in recovery. And especially because, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a shutdown. So everything came to halt, and it was like, well, nope, no one can leave their houses unless you're going to the store. There are all these different things that are considered non-essential, and people really had to pivot, right? They had to figure out, oh man, so if I'm in recovery, how am I receiving my treatment services? If I'm in recovery, how am I going to AA or NA meetings or things like that? Additionally, there has been an increase of opioid overdose deaths for folks who were using prescription drugs to be able to cope in particular. Also, we've been seeing a trend, and this was actually happening prior to COVID-19, of folks who were purchasing prescription drugs like on the street or from social media or someone they knew, and it being laced with fentanyl. And what a lot of people don't realize is with fentanyl, even the smallest amount of like a grain of salt could kill you, right? Even that smallest amount could kill you. And so we had been seeing and still are seeing an increase in overdose deaths related to opioids. Also, marijuana dispensaries being considered essential. Being in school isn't essential, but this marijuana dispensary is extremely essential. Where the parity in that, and just really trying to wrap our heads around that has just been wild. Also, telehealth being available. So more and more providers started to use telehealth, which is great, and counties started to fund it. However, there are a lot of safety concerns due to COVID-19, which definitely helped with this shift. But one of the things that we've seen is that telehealth has been more effective for someone who's received a level of care prior to COVID-19. So say someone was new to treatment or they hadn't started treatment but were considering it, telehealth may not be as effective for them because they haven't developed that level of structure yet, and haven't been in recovery for a bit of time. When it comes to youth substance abuse and COVID-19, again, we've been seeing increased opioid use and abuse amongst youth. Vaping is still on the rise. We have seen a lot of reports of new users, new teens who are saying, yes, they started vaping. Also, social isolation, missing connection. We know that there have been a lot of youth who have been reporting that they're depressed, reporting that they're having all of these challenges because they aren't connecting with folks. They aren't connecting with their friends, or they're at home with their siblings and their parents, and they don't really have space or a sense of autonomy because everyone is in the house. Also, you may have heard of Zoom fatigue or online fatigue. We've been hearing about that more and more, and people just being tired of being on Zoom or being on a device. And also mental health issues, there being a rise in that. Jeannie Shimatsu, who works for the Asian American Drug Abuse Program, she was talking about the city of Monrovia, where she lives, and how they, in a few months span, had 6 youth suicides within the city. And the parents were reporting that they didn't know anything was wrong with their children. So unfortunately, there's a lot going on, and COVID-19 has really brought some things to the surface level, and then also created some new challenges or issues that have come up for our young people. So let's talk about vaping now that we know kind of this big picture of like what's happening with the state of substance abuse and COVID-19, what's happening with um, our young people in relation to substance abuse and COVID-19, and just really hone down on vaping. So I want to cover some general things first that you may or may not know. So there are effects of nicotine on the brain when it comes to anyone who's using nicotine, but especially young folks. So the brain is not fully developed until you're 25 years old. And so when we're looking at nicotine, it has this effect where it's rewiring the brain because your brain is looking at the nicotine as, wow, this is great, right? So folks will get this high or this jolt that can lead to nicotine addiction and making them susceptible to other types of drugs because of the pleasure that they're receiving. Additionally, it affects the brain circuits that control attention and learning. And so prior to the pandemic, one of the things that we were seeing in talking to young folks and really working with them was that they were having a lot of challenges in class. A lot of challenges for those who were vaping. And a part of it was because they had developed this habit. And so trying to sit there in class without needing to take a puff or a hit off of their vape was extremely challenging. So we started hearing about students who would frequently ask to go to the restroom, or students who were even getting caught in class vaping because they needed another hit, right? They needed to receive this pleasure and the addiction that they were developing. Also, it puts teens at risk for developing mood disorders and also permanent problems with impulse control. We've definitely talked to a lot of teens who've expressed that they get upset. They don't know why they're getting upset. Or they are having challenges with different things, and I don't know why I did it. I just wanted to do it. If I could stop, I would stop. Like, I don't know how many times I've heard that from young people, and especially those who are involved with substance use. And so we want to make sure that we are educating young folks and helping them understand that their brain is still developing. And so when they choose to use nicotine or even marijuana, for instance, it unfortunately impacts the brain in ways that they aren't even thinking about. So something else that I want to just express to you all is a lot of folks don't know, but vaping products are actually aerosols. So some of the common types of aerosols that you may think of are spray paint, hairspray, maybe Lysol or some other form of cleaner, Axe deodorant. These are typical responses that I hear from folks. And so when you think of a vape device, it doesn't look like an aerosol, a typical aerosol can. However, what's happening is you're vaping or inhaling these particles, and these particles are falling on your lungs. So I don't know if you all remember prior to COVID, we were dealing with something called EVALI. And there were a lot of hospitalizations from teens and from other folks, adults, who were being hospitalized and having all these lung issues. And they were even seeing all these holes in their lungs. And now we don't really hear about it because COVID has taken over, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. However, this has not gone away. So even though we aren't hearing about it, the education still needs to happen because vaping is harmful to your lungs. The other thing is that they've done studies. Stanford has done studies. There have been a lot of other folks who have done studies. I think Harvard even had a study that really focused on the impacts of vaping for someone who's vaping related to COVID. and how your chances of like just really struggling and having challenges with COVID increase by 5 to 7 for 5 to 7 people, 5 to 7 times more than someone who isn't vaping. Your chances of having challenges and so forth with COVID are there, right? Because of the impact that vaping is having on your lungs, excuse me. When it comes to some of the vaping trends, youth are still using it. And so we're even hearing about students who are reporting that they're going on campuses, they're going in the fields or less visible areas to be able to vape, or even just provide opportunities to get together, right? And so with this, they're getting together and they're vaping, or they're having a hangout. And what used to be the hangout was everybody going to someone's house, but now mom and dad are home, so young people aren't spending that time there with their friends, and doing some of the things that they used to do. Also, social media purchases, and this includes marijuana as well. So, folks, I mean, over time, people just get smart regardless, but um, social media, utilizing social media to be able to purchase vaping devices, purchase marijuana, has been a big thing. And then also, I mentioned the linkages to COVID-19 risk, which are extremely important. So I wanted to add this in here, because I think this was extremely important information. There was a study that was done in Canada. They did more than 1,000 surveys with youth focused on alcohol use, binge drinking, cannabis use, and also vaping, the 3 weeks directly before and then also after the social distancing measures took place. So this was early last year, in March. And so, with this, what came out of that survey was that the frequency of both alcohol and cannabis use increased during social isolation. So, when I say cannabis, I'm referring to marijuana. Additionally, about half of the teens who reported, who filled out the survey reported solitary substance use, meaning that they were using substances on their own. 32% of them reported that they were using substances with peers via technology. And then also 24% reported using substances face to face despite social distancing mandates. And so, one of the things that they got out of this was the fear of losing friendships, also being more willing to engage in risky behaviors like face-to-face substance use, to maintain their social status, and also, just the depressive nature, and COVID-19 fears that folks were having, led to a lot of the solitary substance use. And so I do want to say that with the peers, them students, young people being with their peers and using technology, you may have even heard of, there were a lot of happy hours, right? Adults were doing this big time. I was seeing it a lot. At the beginning of the pandemic, I would see folks with carts, not with toilet tissue. I mean, there probably wasn't any toilet tissue left on the shelf, but not with other types of food, but carts full of alcohol, right? And they're doing virtual happy hours and like all of these things. So adults were also using substances to cope as well. But young people were also having these virtual gatherings where they were using substances. And so this is something important to think about when it comes to the adaptability of our young folks. They are highly intelligent. And so we need to make sure that even though on this side of the fence, they're receiving the information that says, you want to do this, you should do this is a healthy way to cope, or whatever the case may be. We need to also make sure they're hearing the other side of it, because we may not always be able to stop this side, but we can educate them. We can provide information on making healthy decisions, also connecting it to their values so they really understand the importance of not vaping, not using nicotine products, not using marijuana products because of the effects on the brain. Also, I wanted to point this out because we're still seeing cereal carts and dank vapes. And so you may or may not, I pray that your child is not vaping or using any form of substance. But if you see any of these cartridges, then definitely you want to look at it, you want to question it, stay calm about it. Because we want to make sure we can have conversations with our children. Also, these are some wax pens. So just making sure you know what the paraphernalia looks like as well. And so with wax pens, they are putting THC or marijuana in them, and they are using them to get high. And also, you can get high off of using nicotine. The high feeling is just really that like jolt of um, of nicotine that they're getting. Um, so some other things, I'll just run through this real quick. California talked about doing a flavor ban. It was signed by Governor Newsom in 2020. It was supposed to take effect on January 1st, but it's been placed on hold for a ballot measure. The tobacco industry put a ton of money into it to convince voters to oppose the ban. And then also, and they're still doing advocacy and work around that. So as our election comes up next year, just get ready because you're going to start to see more and more of this way or that way. But we really need to make sure we support banning these flavor products because young people are gravitating towards the flavors. Also, having the talking about the delivery of vaping products. Congress passed a law by our former president to ban United States Postal Service's delivery of vaping products. They also have a list of compliance things that retailers who sell those products have to do. And so I actually haven't looked at the update, but supposed to take place in regards to FedEx on March 1st, them prohibiting electronic cigarettes, also vaping liquids and other vaping products in their FedEx global network. So lastly, I want to conclude with some things that you all can do. I feel like I've been talking a lot and I think I've said a lot. So hopefully you've been able to digest it. I've also given these slides to the team so they can get sent out to you all as well if you're interested. So there's a lot that you can do. First and foremost, if you need help, please seek help. I think sometimes we, as parents, we feel like we have to have it all together, and that's not true. It's okay if you don't have it all together and you're still trying to figure it out, or the pandemic has you stressed out, or whatever it is, right? If you need help, seek help because that's extremely important. And we can't be well for our children or other people if we aren't well ourselves. Also, make sure you educate yourselves. There are a lot of great resources and websites that are out there that focus on vaping and focus on other types of substances so you can educate yourselves so you know what to look out for, what's going on, how you can be the person educating your children, and so forth. Make sure that you check in with your children. We are still in the midst of a pandemic. I know that there are schools that are starting to open back up. However, how are our children going to transition into those schools? Like, that's a big one, right? We have spent a year out of the classroom. We've been doing virtual learning. So how are our children going to transition back into the classroom, having to interact and engage with their peers and so forth? Also making sure that you provide opportunities for virtual connection with friends and family. So the pandemic, again, is still happening, so we want to be safe. And so it's important that you provide opportunities for connection, even if they're happening virtually. And something that I really like and suggest is hosting a virtual movie night. Zoom accounts, you can get them for free, only up to 40 minutes, but you can also use Google Meets, and you don't have to worry about a time limit restriction. And what you could do is have a virtual movie night. It could be a play date. Get some of your kids' friends or whomever, you all put on a movie via Netflix, and everyone can watch it and then have some interaction afterwards, and even conversation afterwards. Additionally, seek counseling or other supports, especially if your child is in need. You can even refer your child for substance abuse and mental health treatment. Please, 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 please talk to your school. They have a lot of resources. They have counselors. They even have interns who are able to be able to do some of the mental health aspects, and the counseling for your children. Find an adult mentor for your child. This is extremely um, important, especially to provide someone. Having someone that can provide encouragement for your child to be a mentor, because they may not feel comfortable talking to you about certain things. Also, organizing a service project or an opportunity to give back. This is definitely a mood booster. I know St. Jude's has a way that you can do online letters, and they'll give the letters to some of the patient or to the patients in their hospitals. You can also have friendly competitions within the household, some game nights or days. Also, it could be who can come up with the most healthy alternatives, and then you list them out and do something like that, or who can do the most squats, or who can make the tastiest healthy dish for lunch or dinner. These are some healthy alternatives that they can do instead of vaping. Additionally, some resources. So behavioral health services, we are definitely a resource and want to support in any way that we can. Angela Bivens, she is the program director for our South Bay location, and so they provide treatment and mental health services primarily. For prevention, feel free to reach out to me. My cell phone number is there, so call me anytime. Also, some virtual tools for the home. You can use Flippity, WordWall, or Resnick Creative, and I'll actually show you what that looks like. You'll also have a slide here that talks about our youth treatment services at our South Bay location. And then some prevention activities that we do with our program. We also have been doing the vaping prevention curriculum, Catch My Breath, other types of alcohol and other drug presentations. National Alcohol and Drugs Fact Week is happening March 22nd through the 28th. So we'll be doing some activities for that. Some events that we have coming up. Respect the Road is happening next Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. It will be virtual. We want to try and get as many teens there as possible. There will be a lot of gift cards given away from Apple, Chick-fil-A, Jamba Juice, Chipotle, and some other things. Additionally, Street Racing Kills has a scholarship for teens, and this particular scholarship is going to cover the cost of driver's ed. So if your teen also attends this event and applies for the scholarship, they'll have an opportunity to receive their driver's ed for free. We'll be having a prescription drugs and you event on, oh, this says March 26th, but that's wrong. It should be March 28th. And so all of these events are virtual. We will have another event on March 25th at 4 p.m. titled Unmute Yourselves. And this is specific for youth. And we're going to focus on vaping and marijuana. On March 26th at 3:30, we will have a prescription drugs and you event focused, and this is specific for teens as well, or youth, focused on prescription drug education. So this is my contact info. I'm going to stop my share, and real quick, I'm going to do a new share. So this is Flippity. This is what the site looks like. You can click on one of these things and create an activity. I have created the spinning wheel. So it says random name picker, but you can create it something else. And so I added some questions, and then here's the spinning wheel, and you can play this at home. Click the spinning wheel, and then sing the chorus of your favorite song. So then you have them sing the chorus of their favorite song, and then whomever's next, then they can spin the wheel and then they can do something. There's also something called word wall. And with word wall, it's an opportunity to also create some different types of activities. And Resnick Creative, I really love this one because you have the ability to do some of the game show games. So Family Feud, Jeopardy. They also have Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And you can customize these to whatever types of games you would like to do. So with that, I am going to stop and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We would like to share a few more resources and then we'll open it up in case anyone has any questions. So let me share my screen again. Okay. Can you see it? Thank you. So just a few additional resources we wanted to discuss. So if you are interested, if your child is vaping or you found your child's vaping or you've seen any kind of products, you can inquire about our TUPE intervention cessation services and contact your school TUPE site coordinator. Again, that's the assistant principal, except for at Sharing Drevno, where it would be the counselor. There's also the California Smokers Helpline, 1-800-NO-BUTTS. Thelma McMillan is another substance use resource. Breathe Southern California, which they'll be doing a presentation for us, for parents as well. And then Clear Recovery for teens and adolescents. And then we have Care Solace. We contract with Care Solace and they are a online vetted referral resource. And what's wonderful is it's for both mental health and or substance use treatment services, not just for our students, but for adults as well. And it's open to all TUSD parents and families. So even if it's your nephew who lives in Orange County and you need help getting, or you want to help your sister get resources for him, then please sign on, call them, ask for help, and they'll give you better resources based on your insurance. And then of course, behavioral health services with Jen Harris. Thank you so much. So does anyone have any questions? If so, you can unmic. Any questions?
I have a question. When you say that social media, that's where a lot of purchases are being made, is it mostly on Snapchat or is there other social media websites that kids are getting drugs through?
Yeah, so Snapchat is definitely one of them. Instagram is still a popular way to be able to get them. And then also Discord is another place that young people are getting it as well. And then also some of the gaming sites where you can do like the audio version of the gaming sites. Then we're hearing a lot of young people who are making connections through there and they're getting the drugs that way.
Thank you. I do have a question. My name is Rosie Rogers. Hello. Um, is there any way or is there a plan in which when the kids are in school, I don't know, it's just a thought. I'm sure there are cameras around, but like, are there any restrictions or any way that it can be monitored in any other ways? This is while they're in school, of course, because they're doing things right after school, right? So if they're not within their specific period, they shouldn't be wandering off. I guess I was in a school which everything was pretty tight and well, how can I say it? The monitoring for where I was just very tight, right? So if you're not within your period, you couldn't be in out of certain areas. I know it's kind of asking for too much, and people are going to think it's like, well, we don't want to have our kids like constrained too much, right? But I think we should. That's just a personal opinion. But is there any way that perhaps the system, the school, the district could apply more strict rules in the schools where the kids are not allowed to leave the premises, the kids are not allowed to be in certain areas if they're not outside of, if they're, ready to go home, perhaps, per se?
Well, each school site has their own, rules around, when students are allowed to leave class and where they're allowed to be. Students are not allowed to leave schools during the school day. That's always been a rule. As for whether or not, students are allowed to go to the bathroom during class, things like that, that would be, up to the individual sites regarding what their policies are around that. I do know that one thing that we have that helps too is the Say Something Anonymous reporting system. We have had some students in the past, if they've seen somebody using something in the bathroom, they've reported it on the Say Something Anonymous reporting system app, and then the administration of the site is able to intervene right away. Sometimes we do have to rely on our students. We do not have cameras in the bathroom for good reason. We definitely do not want cameras in bathrooms seeing students doing what they're doing. I mean, when they're using it appropriately. So we do rely on students for things that might happen in those areas. As for how often there's adults checking in bathrooms and things like that, that's more of a site question. But I do know that, we do get anonymous reports on our Say Something Anonymous reporting system from students saying somebody was doing something in the bathroom and things like that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and can I also add, so there have been, so El Segundo, for instance, they ended up getting the vaping detectors and they put them in the bathrooms and around campus. And one of the things that came out of, and there are some other school districts that did too in schools. And one of the things that came out of that was that students were able to recognize the vaping detectors. So they started vaping elsewhere, or even students who weren't vaping would be able to recognize them. The other thing too is having false alarms go off. And so sometimes the alarms were going off, unfortunately, and students weren't vaping. And so, so that was something that was tried, but hasn't been perfected yet. The other thing too is, I think, all of those things are great and the monitoring is great. And schools definitely have a role to play, but it also starts at home, right? With the values that we instill in our children and helping them understand the impacts that um, the choices they make will have on them. And so I think it's important that we have education and have prevention and education happening in the home, in school, and as Antoinette mentioned, making sure that young folks know that they have the choice to be able to report it, because we have a lot of young people who aren't using, and most students don't use. Unfortunately, there are students who are using, and we have to deal with that.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. It's a team effort from all angles. So, are there any recommendations that you may have for us parents to where to get those type of detectors? For example, I have 3 kids, right? One of them is 26 now, almost 27, and I have 2 teenagers. So the experience I had with my first, and it has happened with friends also that have teenagers, is that they're not always truthful, and they're always going to have some. I can say I will never put my hands on the fire for my kids. I love them to death, but they are liars. They're going to hide things, and they're going to want to experience things, and they know it's wrong, and they're not going to say it. So they get caught, and that's when they get in trouble. But so before they get to that, learning from my first experience with my daughter and my nephews is that we have to be 10 steps ahead of the game. And to us, it's like having all these tools is great, talking to them is great. But now, like you mentioned, they have certain detectors that would be great if we can know where to find them, because as much as they come here with an innocent face and they have good grades, the grades going down doesn't necessarily they're doing something bad, but it's also something that we want to have handy, right? To actually say, hey, we know that you experience this, and they're gonna say, why? How do you know? Well, there's a detector. I'm not gonna tell them have it, but they may have it done one time. They may do it only 2 times, but one is enough, right? To actually, nip it in the bud right there and then. So this type of things that you mentioned, like testers and detectors of substance, how can we get our hands on it?
Yeah, so I don't have a vape detector that I recommend because, like I said, they aren't perfect. And I'm a firm believer in the education and value system aspect. And so I would definitely say Google it and look up, Google it and look up vape detectors so you can try and find one that'll best fit your needs or what you would prefer having. You're probably also going to see some information about how students have been beating the detectors or how they've been able to get away from the detectors. And so, unfortunately, our past experiences with folks uh, can put a lens on us in can sometimes put a lens on us in how we view other people. And so I want to encourage you to figure out how you can start having conversations with your children and really having those honest conversations where they get to a place to where you trust them, they trust you, and are willing to just speak on a level of transparency. Because what I don't want to happen is for your child, and I've actually seen this happen, for your child to feel like you or your children that you don't trust them, and that has them feeling like they're being pushed away to make inappropriate choices. I'll just leave it at that. So definitely my recommendation would be for you to just do your own research and Google some different detectors because I don't have a recommendation for one.
I have a question. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's been really informative. And I know, Jen, you mentioned that other school districts have put in those detectors. Do we happen to know if Torrance is planning to put in the detectors at all?
No, so would you like to take this? We were in conversation in 2019 about the possibility of doing it. And this is me and a couple other community folks with the district. And I'm sure Antoinette will be able to answer this a little bit better with where they are now. But some of the things to consider are the cost of the detectors and also the effectiveness of the detectors. Because there's no point in wasting money, right, if it's not going to be effective. So Antoinette, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, at this time, I don't know of any plans. I know a lot of our plans have been focused on COVID and the switch to distance learning, and then the bringing kids back. So as far as I know, there haven't been any recent discussions about it. Do we have any other questions?